You're watching Riptide Finance, and I'm your host, Raul.
You've been playing a game your entire life, and nobody told you. In 1904, a woman named Lizzie Magie invented the board game that became Monopoly. Not for fun, as a warning. A working demonstration of how the money ends. One player owns everything, and everyone else pays the rent until they broke. We turned her warning into a family entertainment. Then we built an economy that plays exactly like it. And here's the idea that might change how you play. The people who win the game treat it like a game. The people who struggle take it deadly seriously. Let me show you the difference. Now, you might be thinking this is a video about a board game. It isn't. Because you already know how to play Monopoly well. Everyone does. You know how a bad roll doesn't make you a bad person. You know how money sitting in your hand does nothing. You know the game isn't over until it's over. And then you get up from the table, walk into your actual life, and forget every single one of those things. You take one bad year personally. You hold money instead of using it. You decide at 34 that the game is basically finished. So this video is about the gap between how you play a game and how you play your life, and why that gap costs you, where it came from, and the 4 rules that close it. No intro, let's go. Look at the board. Your starting cash, that's the family you are born into. Nobody chooses it. Some players sit down with more. The dice, that's luck, health, timing, the year you were born, the market, the year you graduated. You don't control the roll. Pass and go, your paycheck. It comes, it goes, it mostly slides across the table to somebody else. The properties, assets. The little greenhouses, investments that quietly collect while the owner does nothing. And rent is every bill you've ever paid to somebody who owns something you don't. Now, here's the strange part. When it's a board, you understand things instantly. A bad roll doesn't make you a bad person. Money is buying property, not for hugging. And no single turn ever decides the game. You know all this, when the board is a cardboard. But in real life, we forget. One bad roll, a failed business, a lost job, a bad year. And we don't say bad roll. We say I'm a failure. We take the dice personally. And it gets worse, because this board is tilted. I showed you the number last episode. Some people start the game with hotels already on the board. The banker quietly hands their side fresh bills before anyone else sees them. Your salary square is taxed every lap. Their property squares just compound. Rent flows in one direction, upward. Lizzie Magie built her game to scream this exact warning. 2 rule sets. One where everybody wins together. One where a single person takes everything. Guess which version the world kept? And her own story? Charles Darrow sold her game to Parker Brothers in 1935 and became a millionaire. Magie got about $500. The woman who invented the game about the game lost the game. And now I want to walk you through exactly how a game of Monopoly ends, because that's the part that makes it a warning instead of a toy. For the first 20 minutes, everyone's fine. Everyone's buying, it feels fair, you land, you pay, you collect, you move on. Nobody is really winning. Then somebody completes a set, and the moment houses go up, the game quietly stops being about luck, because now every lap around the board costs more than the lap before it. You're still rolling the same dice. You're still passing go, collecting the same salary you always collected, but the board underneath you changed. The square got expensive while your income stayed flat. Sounds familiar? Then comes the moment everyone at the table knows. You land on the wrong square, one roll, and suddenly you're mortgaging things you own to pay rent on things you don't. And here's the cruel bit. Mortgaging works. It saves you for one turn. Then you're carrying the same rent with fewer assets, and the next bad roll arrives faster. That's not bad luck. That's the machine doing exactly what was built to do. Magie designed that spiral deliberately, so people would feel it in their hands. In real life, we don't call it landing on a hotel. We call it a broken boiler, a car that doesn't start on a Monday, a hospital bill, a rent increase you can't say no to, one square. And 6 months of careful progress is gone. And then the person who owns that square didn't do anything that day. They didn't work. They just own it while you walk past. And here's the part nobody says out loud. Everyone at the table can see it coming, long before the game actually ends. Every player already knows who won. But the rules say you keep rolling. And you sit there, taking turns, in a game that was decided 20 minutes ago. That feeling, there's not a design flaw. That was the entire point. But here's the cruelest mechanic of all. And this is the part I really want you to hear. The more seriously you take it, the worse you play. Scared money makes terrible decisions. The terrified player never buys, never risks, never experiments. Just clutches their starting cash while inflation melts it in their fist. Fear feels responsible. It plays like losing. So is the answer to flip the table? To quit? No. Here's the reframe nobody says out loud. Taking the game seriously and taking yourself seriously are two different things. Watch anyone who's actually good at any game. Poker, chess, football, Monopoly. They're calm, curious, a little playful. They study the rules like scholars and shrug off a lost round like weather. The game gets their full attention. Their ego stays off the table. Poker players even have a word for the opposite. Tilt. The moment you play from emotion, from wounded pride, from fear, you're not playing the game anymore. The game is playing you. There's the philosopher, James Cars, who split all games in two kinds. Finite games, you play to win. Infinite games, you play to keep playing. Life is the second kind. You can't win it. You can only play it well, or play it scared. So here's how a player moves. Same board, different posture. Rule 1. Read the rules before you blame the dice. Nobody wins Monopoly without knowing the rent boardwalk charges. Last episode was the real book, assets, compounding, taxes. Most people never open it, then call the game unfair. It is unfair. Read the rules anyway. That's how you make the unfairness work on your side on the board. Rule 2. Buy the board. Don't hug the cash. In Monopoly, everyone knows the player hoarding money is losing slowly. In life, we call that same behavior being careful. Every lap of that board, every paycheck, a player converts same cash into squares they own. Small squares count. The board doesn't care how big your first property is. It cares that you started collecting. Rule 3. Treat losses as tuition, not verdicts. Every good player lost the first game. That's how they got good. A bad roll is data. A failed move is a lesson with a price tag. The only unrecoverable loss on this board is the player who gets so scared of rolling that they stop taking turns. And rule 4, the one that sounds least like finance advice and matters most. Lower the emotional stakes to raise your game. When it's just a game, you make the bold call. You try the weird strategy. You laugh at the terrible roll and roll again. Relaxed players see the whole board. Terrified players see only their own trembling hands. Not taking yourself too seriously isn't immaturity, it's a competitive advantage. None of this is financial or life advice. By the way, I'm just one player sharing notes with another. The dice are still yours. So here's my verdict. Life is the only game where forgetting you're playing is called being an adult. We reward the clenched jaw, the heavy sign, the deadly seriousness, and quietly wonder why joyful people keep winning. And remember how Monopoly actually ends. One player owes everything. Everyone else is bankrupt. And nobody is having fun, including the winner, sitting alone on a pile of paper money. That's the finite game. That's the trap. Play the infinite one instead. Learn the rules like it matters, because it does. Hold yourself lightly, because that's how you play it well. Take the game seriously, never yourself. Your whole life you've been at the table, whether you liked it or not. The dice are already in your hand. Roll again. If you've been here until now, thanks for watching.